Everyone to our February 15th, Leanne Williams, San Diego County Human Relations Commission meeting, and we will get started.
All right, call the meeting in order. We can take roll. Commissioner Anaya. Vice Chair Arton. Commissioner Chasen. Commissioner Kate Clark.
Present.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark. Commissioner De Los Rios.
Present.
Commissioner Desert. Commissioner Elliott Santos.
Present.
Commissioner Evans. I think I just saw her come in. Commissioner Evans.
I'm here. You just let me in.
Thank you. Commissioner Farouk.
Present.
Commissioner Fowler. Commissioner David Garcias. Commissioner Tammy Gillies.
Present.
Commissioner Griffith Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Hassan.
Doesn't mean that you have to break the bank. I mean, some
Commissioner Taha Hassan. Commissioner Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Ismail.
Present.
Commissioner Cody.
Present.
Commissioner Legaspi.
Present.
Acting Sheriff Kelly Martinez.
So it's really about taking the time to
Present.
and decor that you decorate your home with.
Commissioner Vice Chair Murray Ramirez. Chair Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Perez.
Present.
Commissioner Ramirez. Armenia. Commissioner Roberts. Yoli Apaguidi on behalf of Somerset.
Present.
Commissioner Villaforte.
Listen, I just saw a fish. So
Present.
good. And I saw that you did
And
another
if
one.
you are not speaking, could you put yourself on mute, please? Appreciate it.
It's fun. Seriously? Denzel?
All right, Madam Chair, we can move to our first agenda item, and I know you want to start with a song in honor of Black History Month.
Oh, and Andrew, I arrived. I'm sorry, I didn't came in a little late. David Garcia.
Thank you. Gotcha, Commissioner Garcias.
Same with Commissioner Clark, please, Andrew.
All right, so is that Cinnamon? Commissioner Cinnamon Clark?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, did we miss anybody else? Don't think so. Okay, Madam Chair.
I wanted to, in honor of Black History Month, just do one stanza of Lift Every Voice and Sing, and Andrew Strong and his staff were able to tee that up for us, just for one moment. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll move on to public comment.
And Madam Chair, we didn't receive any requests to speak, but we do have some members of the public in attendance if they wish to speak. And I believe you wanted to allow them 1 minute to make sure we keep to the 15-minute time frame allotted for public comment. And I see we have one hand raised. We have Francine Maxwell. Please allow her to speak on me.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I would like to request if you guys could maybe make a PSA. The community doesn't know that they can join a subcommittee, that they're open and that they can participate. It's a wonderful thing. I participated yesterday and was able to do legislative, and I went to the youth. And so if you can just do an extra push to let people know the benefit of participating, because the community, we're still looking, we know the mission vision statements being worked on and it's out there, but when somebody speaks to our children incorrectly in a classroom, and I'm just going to use high-tech middle elementary, the community would love to have a statement, a public statement from these commissioners that sit here. So please consider another media blitz as it pertains to the participation and the inclusion that this commission offers to the public. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francine. And we also had Eramarique Glass Blake's hand up, but I saw it went down. Would you still like to speak, Eramarique?
So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to wait until the agenda item comes up. So is this non-agenda public comment, or am I supposed to speak now on my item?
This is not agenda public comment, but you can speak if you have to, if you need to take off.
I can wait. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other requests to speak, Madam Chair, and I believe you wanted to reorder the agenda to take the follow-up item 7 as the first item on the agenda.
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay. So this item is the follow-up to the discussion on the letter to the commission from the center, the subject of follow-up on the request to have Commissioner Hodges resign or removed from the Leon Williams Human Relations County Human Relations Commission. Turn it over to you, Madam Chair, for discussion.
Yes, I wanted to move this item up because there are some public comments that were brought to my attention. And I thought it would be easy to expedite this conversation, given we have a time certain agenda item in the next 15 minutes in regards to the jail deaths. So that's why I wanted to move this up. So if we could start with public comment, and then commissioners, if you have a response or comments to make after our public comment.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And so we did have Eramarique Glass Blake who wanted to speak, and then Francine Maxwell, I believe your hand is up to speak on this as well. So we can start with Eramarique, and you can give them 1 minute to speak.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This morning, there was a letter sent out to the Board of Supervisors and the commissioners and Madam Chair and Director Andrew Strong. That letter was nearly 150 pastors and faith leaders, not just in support of Pastor Hodges, but really supporting conversation and dialogue around moving forward. And the harm and the situation at hand. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that this morning. We have reached out to the National Center for Transgender Equality and the LGBTQ plus community. And we have begun to organize a forum and restorative dialogue around the issue at hand and a much needed conversation. Pastor Hodges and many other pastors and faith leaders have agreed to be a part of the dialogue and participate and attend the forum. And I just wanted to say this. I think the county Human Relations Board is about, or commission is about, promoting positive human relations and how to navigate through conflict and problems. And I believe in differences, right? And so if the board and the commission can get it right, then they can be an example for what the rest of the county needs to do when these issues, when these hard conversations, when these conflicts come up. And so I believe conflict, when nurtured properly, produces growth. And we have an opportunity to handle this situation with nurturing and care, with understanding, with love, with forgiveness. But we need to have some hard conversations in that dialogue. And so that letter went out this morning. You all should have a copy. The Board of Supervisors have a copy. Read through it. And we invite you, the commission, to be a part of the dialogue, to be a part of the conversation, to be a part of the forum, and move forward after we have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blake.
Okay, we have Francine Maxwell.
Okay.
Good morning, Francine Maxwell, Chairwoman of Black Men and Women United, San Diego. This is a follow-up to the letter that was sprung at the last meeting, to the shock and dismay of a lot, because a lot of people didn't know that it was coming. And so I'm pleased that it is agendized so that we can discuss it. We want to remember, not only as we celebrate Black History Month all year long, but the backs that we stand upon, the shoulders for the struggle. And so this is an opportunity to teach the next generation and to heal. I'm hoping that people, if you didn't get an opportunity to watch what our chairman, Council Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, said last week, Wednesday, at 7 p.m. from the desk of the editor, Dr. Warren, on GOD1 Radio. Please go back and pull up the archive. And he talked about how many people were hurt by a word, how many people, how he was hurt. And so we do understand that words hurt. And so put a whole bunch of words together in this type of letter, and it can hurt the entire region. And what we're trying to do with an icon, a Black man's name that is on this commission. So I look forward to the conversation and the proposal for restorative circles, for healing, for moving forward. You are the people that are supposed to teach the next generation that are coming behind. And so I would hope that we would just bend that corner and know that this too shall pass, and everybody show up with their own sack lunch and a couple bottles of water, and let's hash this out. And let's have an uncomfortable conversation in a safe space and agree to disagree respectfully. And remember that we do have a civil society and we need civility in this particular issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. I have a couple of questions to you, Mr. Strong. Director Strong, did the letter just came in actually last night? I saw it last night, early this morning, actually. Were we able to get it out to all of the commissioners?
We did. It came in at 3 a.m. this morning. We just sent it out right before this meeting to the entire commission. So everybody should have it in their inbox. And if you don't have it for some reason, please let us know. We can get it to you as soon as possible. And Madam Chair, by the way, we do have 2 more hands raised for comments. And also our presenter from the State Auditor's Office is on the call. So just
okay, thank you. Can we recognize the 2 other comments?
Yes, we have Eric's Galaxy tab, and we have Dr. Leonard Thompson. So why don't we start with Eric's Galaxy tab?
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. The situation that this commission finds itself faced with today, as far as removal of one of the commissioners, is heart-wrenching because of a position that the commissioner has is really no different than the commissioner that's involved. who's being considered, most of the ministers are not speaking out because assistance is needed from the county, from the city and the state. And when you have people that will go on air and literally say, because of the position that a man of faith takes about a considered atrocity as far as his faith is concerned, and yet still be willing to associate without being critical or condemning about the other individual's position. I think it's totally unfair. And then having the discussion about removing him because of the position that he takes is totally unfair. I think that when you stop and look at it, it does not change the commissioner's position, Commissioner Hodges' position, from the commissioner who's complaining. They do both need to sit down and talk about it, but it's not something where one needs to be removed because he refuses to give a unanimous vote for the character of the lifestyle that the other commissioner wishes to live. I think this is penalizing one for his faith in the way that he believes he should live, and that you're awarding the other for the faith that they're living. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next commenter, 1 minute, please, because we have a full agenda. So the next comment, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Dr. Thompson. First of all, I want to applaud everyone that is here, the commissioners, for being willing to have the conversation and the dialogue around this situation. My encouragement to everyone is that it is so important that as we move forward, that we still have a spirit of healing and a spirit of togetherness. We are still yet one city that has to work together. And I think it's so important that if we get to a restorative practice, you all will be the example of what so many other commissions would need to do to continue to heal our city and strengthen our city. So I'm just encouraging the restorative practice and the restorative circle, and hopefully we can get back on the plan of unity and what's best for our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Any comments from the commissioners? We do have a time certain presentation, and willing to come back to this topic after the time certain conversation regarding the jail death study that should begin now and go to about 10:45, 10:50, and then we will circle back on this particular topic.
And we did have four hands up, so we definitely have those. Keep your hands up, that way we know once the next presentation is over. I'll write your names down, that way we have it, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And we could go to, if we can move over Mike Tilden from the attendees. He's going to be our presenter on the jail deaths this morning. Okay, Mr. Tilden, are you over? Can you hear us?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And let me stop sharing my screen. Let me see if we have our camera up, and that way we can see you. Let's see here. There you are. Okay. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Tilden. The floor is yours. Or Chair, if you want to do some quick introductory comments, go for it. You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Tillman, is it Tillman? Tilden? Tilden, all right. He's from the California State Auditor,
Yeah.
and he's going to provide us a presentation on the jail deaths outcome that's become a very controversial issue in this community. And we thank you for, with such short notice, that you were able to join us on this call. Thank you so much. You have the floor.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. As you said, I'm Mike Tilden. I'm the acting California State Auditor. Just for the record, I have Nick Kalitzos joining me. He was the audit manager on our audit of the San Diego Sheriff's Department, as well as Michelle Sanders. She was our the actual audit supervisor. So they're with me too. And just in case we have any questions that I can't answer, they can help me out. Anyway, as you said, we were asked by the Joint Legislative Audit Committee to conduct an audit of the San Diego Sheriff's Department. And really it was to do two things. One, to figure out what was going on down there in terms of the rate of deaths of incarcerated individuals. And two, to sort of figure out what the Sheriff's Department was doing in response to those deaths. So unfortunately, to set the stage, one of the first things that we did is we gathered data from the Department of Justice, and we analyzed the number of deaths that were happening in the San Diego County Sheriff's Department's custody over the last 15 years, and found that there were 185 deaths from 2006 to 2020. 52 of those were deaths by suicide. We also got updated information from the Sheriff's Department itself in terms of the number of in-custody deaths in 2021. And unfortunately, there were another 18 individuals that died in the sheriff's custody just last year. And obviously, those are disturbing numbers. And really, only Los Angeles County's jails had more deaths over that 15-year time period. And obviously, the population of individuals in their jails is much higher than San Diego. So one of the things that we also did is we looked at the actual death rate, where we used different metrics to make the counties more comparable. And one of the things we did is we compared the number of deaths in the different jails to their average daily jail population. And when we did that, San Diego actually had the highest death rate over the last 15 years. So with that backdrop, what we really wanted to find out is what was causing this high rate of deaths in San Diego County's jails. And to answer that question, the team looked at 30 deaths that occurred over that 15-year period. Our sample selection was weighted towards deaths that occurred more recently. And we did a very robust review. We looked at case files, we looked at video surveillance files, and we found a number of breakdowns were occurring at the sheriff's office. Number one, we found when individuals are initially booked into the San Diego County's this detention facility, we found that staff weren't doing a good job of identifying their medical and mental health needs up front. They don't have a medical health professional that's there doing the screening. And because of that, they're not always identifying individuals with mental health needs. And so one of the things that we did looking at our 30 cases is we found that there were 8 situations where individuals came into the jail and they had significant mental health or medical needs that were not identified. And the problem with that is without having that information, it's difficult for San Diego County Sheriff to make proper housing assignments and to flag individuals that need proper follow-up care. And unfortunately, 5 of those 8 individuals that we identified actually died within 4 days of entering San Diego's detention facility. Related to that, we found that individuals that did have pre-existing medical needs or mental health needs, they weren't getting timely and adequate follow-up care. And again, in our sample, we noted situations where individuals were complaining about different mental health and medical issues, and they weren't getting prompt attention. In other words, they weren't getting access to a doctor in a timely manner. And unfortunately, we found situations where they actually died of those symptoms before they ever saw anyone. Another key control that we think really wasn't functioning as intended, and that is the sworn officers are required to do hourly safety checks where they walk around and they look at everybody in their cells. And this is a key control for ensuring basically the health and safety of incarcerated individuals. But we found when we looked at the video surveillance that some of the officers were walking by and just merely glancing into the cell without breaking stride. And to us, it was pretty obvious that these were not effective safety checks. And unfortunately, we found situations where you would have an officer coming by every hour on the hour, and this would happen several times before suddenly someone would realize that somebody was unresponsive and had actually died hours earlier. So clearly, these safety checks are not thorough enough. And finally, we found there were situations where individuals had medical emergencies and sworn staff and medical health staff were not responding promptly enough, were not providing life-saving measures as quickly as they should have. And as a result, you know, that the slow response in some of those situations may have contributed to individuals' deaths. The other thing I wanted to point out is that there is a state entity, the Board of State and Community Corrections, that is responsible for setting minimum standards that all county jails have to follow in terms of ensuring the health and safety of individuals that are incarcerated. But the board, they set these standards and they see them as minimal standards. They set the bar very low. And their expectation is that the counties will develop more robust policies and procedures that would be responsive to their own risk. But we found that that's not really occurring. The counties really aren't developing, by and large, more robust policies and procedures. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about is, given this high rate of death, we know that the San Diego Sheriff's Department, they do a number of internal reviews. So we wanted to look at how robust are those reviews and are they serving their intended purpose? And really that purpose should be finding out what's happening, what's causing the deaths, and are there any systemic breakdowns? Are there any deficiencies in policies and procedures that the sheriff could identify as a result of these investigations to make changes to prevent similar deaths in the future? And unfortunately, we just really didn't see that. The sheriff's reviews oftentimes were not documented, and they really didn't seem to be focused on identifying lessons learned and identifying proactive corrective actions that the sheriff's department could take to really minimize the risk of similar deaths in the future. And that was, to us, a very key breakdown. And related to that, we found that the San Diego County Sheriff, they've had a number of recommendations that have been made by other external entities like the San Diego County Grand Jury. I believe they hired a suicide prevention consultant, as well as CLRB. And these entities have issued a number of recommendations over the years that would really have addressed some of these deficiencies that I just talked about. But the sheriff was really slow to implement, and in fact, did not implement some of those key recommendations over the years. And I want to talk in a little more detail about one of those external entities I'm sure you're familiar with, and that's the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, that's CLRB. The citizens basically voted to establish this entity back in 1990. One of their key responsibilities was to investigate deaths that occurred in the sheriff's custody. But unfortunately, CLRB has failed to provide effective oversight of deaths in the sheriff's department jails. One, the reviews that they're doing are really not independent. Everything that the CLRB investigators are reviewing are basically an outcome of the sheriff's investigations. In other words, CLRB's investigators are really reviewing documentation that's provided by the sheriff's investigators. CLRB investigators, they don't conduct any interviews with sworn officers or any other witnesses. They also don't actually visit the scene of the death. So that's really very important. We think the fact that this is supposed to be external oversight of these deaths, but in fact, these reviews are really not independent. Another major problem is that they're not timely. We found that from 2006 to 2017, CLRB failed to investigate 57 in custody deaths. And that's nearly a third of the deaths that occurred during that time period. And one of the key reasons that CLRB didn't do those investigations is they didn't really prioritize the investigation of in custody death. They have other responsibilities that we think are a lower priority, but they didn't prioritize that work, and as a result, didn't investigate quite a few of these deaths. Finally, when we looked at the case files and we looked at the investigators' notes, we found that their reviews, when they did conduct them, were not very thorough. We found that there were discrepancies in the case files that the CLRB investigators really didn't follow up on. So as an external oversight entity, CLRB really needs to tighten things up. They need to start conducting their investigations more independently. They need to negotiate with the sheriff to gain access to sworn officers and to gain the ability to actually interview those officers and get their cooperation in terms of figuring out where the breakdowns are occurring, what's causing them, and what positive changes can come out of those reviews. So lastly, I wanted to talk about our recommendations, and this is an area where we spent quite a bit of time thinking about who's in the best position to really push the sheriff to make these much needed changes. And unfortunately, there really isn't any single entity that really has sufficient oversight of the San Diego County Sheriff. Obviously, this is an elected office. And so when we kind of thought about who could compel the department to make these important changes, we considered the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, but that entity has very little oversight over the sheriff. Primarily, their authority is just in the area of reviewing and approving the sheriff's budget. We also looked at the state level. We looked at the Attorney General, but they're not really very well positioned either to push the sheriff to make changes. So against that backdrop and the fact that we see this continuing high rate of deaths in San Diego's jails and the department's ineffective response to those deaths in terms of making important changes, our conclusion was really it's the state of California, it's the legislature that really needs to push the San Diego County Sheriff to make much needed changes. So that's the direction that we went. We have a number of recommendations to the California legislature to require the Sheriff's Department to make changes to their policies and procedures. For example, in the area of the intake and the bookings, we have recommendations that the legislature require the sheriff to make those evaluations a little more thorough and to do a better job of identifying, the mental health needs, the medical needs of individuals at intake. And part of that is requiring that the sheriff have a mental health professional there. So when individuals are booked, you have an appropriate person that can actually identify mental health needs and make sure those individuals get the appropriate housing assignments and get appropriate access to follow-up care. We also recommend that the legislature push the sheriff to ensure that individuals are getting prompt follow-up care for medical and mental health needs, and also push the sheriff to ensure that these really critical safety checks that are happening, that they're more thorough than they've been in the past, and that they really entail ensuring that each individual is alive and well and is actually breathing when those hourly safety checks are conducted. In the area of internal reviews, we think the legislature should push the San Diego Sheriff to just improve the robustness of those internal reviews, to start documenting those reviews, to change the focus of those reviews to where it's all about identifying lessons learned and identifying any breakdowns in policies and procedures and shoring that up by way of making changes to those policies and procedures to really prevent similar deaths in the future. And then finally, related to these minimum standards that the Board of State and Community Corrections sets, we think the legislature needs to require the board to really raise the bar on these standards for all jails in the state of California. And part of that would be to require that, again, that safety checks across the board really need to be spelled out in terms of what they should entail. And again, it's as simple as spelling out that when officers are conducting these safety checks, they're ensuring that individuals are actually breathing in their cells. And we also think that at least for the larger jails, the Board of State and Community Corrections needs to require that mental health professionals be involved in evaluating individuals and their need for mental health. And finally, we had a recommendation that the board needs to improve their training requirements for sworn officers. And so we have a number of recommendations along those lines. So those are kind of the key points, our key findings, our key recommendations, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have or to drill down into any more detail in any area that you may be interested in.
Thank you for this thorough and disheartening presentation. I want to open the floor up to our my fellow commissioners.
And we have Acting Sheriff Kelly Martinez raised her hand and would like to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Director and commissioners and Madam Chair. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm happy to meet all of you for those of you that I don't know. As Director Strong said, I am the acting sheriff right now. Sheriff Gore retired about 2 weeks ago. I want to thank Mr. Tilden and his team. We worked with them last year and basically opened our doors and all of our documents to their review. I want to tell you right up front, I agree with a lot of these recommendations and a lot of the review. And we've already been acting on many of the recommendations. Some of them I started as undersheriff last year. Some of them you've probably seen in the last couple of weeks. Some of the changes you'll be seeing more. We did sign an MOU with CLRB yesterday, and it takes effect immediately. They will be responding to death scene investigations, both in custody deaths and also the death scenes of officer or deputy involved shootings that result in death or death is likely to occur. I absolutely take this audit seriously. I take the recommendations seriously. I agree. Mental health evaluations at intake, those assessments are crucial to identifying the mental status of the individuals that are coming into our care. We are actively seeking to hire RNs, LVNs, mental health clinicians. As you all know, nationally, there's a shortage of those workers. However, that's not stopping us. We're working with the county to try to incentivize hiring those positions. A number of other things. Telepsychiatry is an alternative. It's not the best option, but at least we'll get those assessments immediately while we try to work through getting people hired, getting spaces where they can meet with clients privately and have those assessments that aren't surrounded by other people. Going through the list, I don't want to miss any of the points that he said, but I'm happy to answer questions as well. The 30-day medical review, absolutely. Our internal assessments, I agree, our incident review boards haven't been effective in identifying some of the issues and concerns that Mr. Tilden and his team identified. 2 weeks ago, I appointed a lieutenant to report directly to me. He's a detentions lieutenant, and his job is to break down all of those silos on our department so that we can interact and understand. Homicide knows what the medical assessments have been and what that medical review is and all of those other things. And we're doing a 3-day review on all in custody deaths that are going to be looking at things like what could we have done differently? Was there any criminal things that need to be addressed? Is there internal investigation that needs to be started? Are there violations of policy and procedure? What ways can we mitigate risk? What training do we need? All of those things. As far as the CLRB oversight, I absolutely agree. I think that's just like this audit points out things we don't see internally because we get so used to our processes, we sometimes don't see where we can do things better. So my priority is the health and safety of the people in our custody. If we don't take care of that, take care of all of the mental health issues, the addiction issues, and all of those other things, we're going to continue to have this problem. So I'm absolutely open to these recommendations. And I hope just setting the stage for all of you, I hope that you understand how passionate I am about this and how much I'm embracing this audit. So thank you for your time.
And Chair Nash, we have Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Corey, hands up in that order.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Garcia's. I know in the past, and I really appreciate this, the audit report. And I would say one of the other things, I was formerly the president of the union that represents the employees, the non-sworn employees at the sheriff's. And one of the complaints a lot of the members had were, you know, as these RNs and LVNs were trying to do their jobs, sometimes deputies would make medical decisions and would basically not allow treatment. I was wondering, is there going to be more of an effort to make sure that there's a medical professional on board that's going to be able to make these decisions versus an actual law enforcement deputy who has no medical knowledge? That's my question.
Yeah, thank you, David, and nice to see you. I appreciate that comment, and we do have heard those complaints, and I am taking those seriously as well. It is incumbent upon our medical staff to make medical decisions, our law enforcement staff to make security decisions. So we are absolutely prioritizing that. That's the delineation between the functions and the responsibilities, and that is taking place.
Mr. Corey.
Yes, I have a question to Mr. Tillman, but I want to also ask Ms. Martinez, how long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 37 years. I started my career in detentions and then worked up until the last year just in other operations, not in the detention.
So the reason I asked is you were part of the top hierarchy of the Sheriff's Department, and accordingly, I hold you personally, as well as my community, I hold you personally, along with the department's top hierarchy, with the ugliness of this audit, because that is really a reflection of the top management. If you were just a regular corporate with shareholders, you would have been fired a long time ago. I am sorry. I know that the racial justice people have been telling you guys for the last several years about those deaths, and nothing was happening until the audit came out, and now you are coming back to us and saying, yeah, you understand and you agree. I really would like to tell you personally that we hold you, at least I and my community hold you, as well as the top hierarchy of the Sheriff's Department, very responsible for that audit and its results. Now, my question to the auditor, do you know which of the different facilities had the highest number of deaths?
And you mean the facilities within San Diego County Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
Let me, Michelle or Nick, if you're there, I have the information in total, and I know in our report we have some tables that just provide that information for not just the San Diego County Sheriff, but we also provide statistics for the 15 largest county jails in the state. And we also have an interactive dashboard that has more information. But Nick Kalitzos or Michelle Sanders, are you there? And can you speak to how the deaths vary between San Diego's different detention facilities?
We're going to allow them to speak right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's like they're over and should have the ability to speak now.
Okay, thank you very much. So in looking at the statistics across the jails, the two jail facilities that had the highest rate of deaths, I believe, are the Vista Detention Facility and George Bailey. I don't have the data in front of me, but but really we found the problems, the four areas that Mr. Tilden talked about across all types of facilities, as well as the various demographics. In terms of the 30 deaths that we looked at, we found those problems across the board.
Okay, my next question basically is, are you aware that the ACLU has also initiated a lawsuit against the Sheriff's Department? And are you a party of that lawsuit, or are you not?
It's our understanding that there is some litigation that's been ongoing, and I believe was ongoing at the time of the audit, and we don't have any information about that. I mean, audit standards require us to conduct our audits in such a way that we don't infringe on any ongoing litigation, so we really wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
And we have Francine Maxwell from a member of the public that would like to make a comment. Turn ask.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm so sorry. Good morning, Francine Maxwell. We were waiting for this report. We're excited about the change that is going to occur. Of course, we send our prayers to all those families that were lost and all the voices. But I want to make sure that the commissioners know to please go to the San Diego NAACP.org website so that you can see a presentation from August 5th from Lieutenant Jack Reynolds, because the NAACP San Diego branch hosted him with a presentation because you know the fentanyl deaths within this region. And so we were very concerned at the time, and we still are across the region about the fentanyl deaths. And he was very personable. The doors were open, and Lieutenant Jack Reynolds came, so you can see his presentation there on the San Diego NAACP.org website. And I would ask that this commission as well hold an open house along with the top leadership with the Sheriff's Department so that you can help educate things that the community can find on their website. A lot of people are not website friendly. And so if you could host and walk people through, there's a lot of information on the Sheriff's website so that as a community, as we begin to demand the changes that we want to see for our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, we all have the most current information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, my hand is up for this item as well.
Oh, sorry.
Minus two.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Martinez, I hear that you're taking this seriously and I appreciate that, but I'd love to hear more about a concrete plan of action to do better that includes goals and timelines. How are you going to provide more robust and consistent documentation? What is the plan not only to prevent future deaths, but to take meaningful action in response to deaths and investigate them consistently? What is the plan to improve the current minimum standard that appears far too light, given our region is so out of step with other law enforcement agencies with nearly twice as many deaths? So would love if you could provide some specifics, goals and a timeline to help us understand what the plan is to improve so that we can support it. And thank you so much, Mike, for your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate what Francine said as well. We are building and it should be up on our website in the next week or two, basically the timelines, all of the goals, and we're going to be tracking our progress and being very transparent on the things that we're doing and our goals. And some of that is hiring staff. We are, as I said, we need to hire mental health clinicians and nurses, as well as deputies to do all of those checks and to protect the medical staff that are in the facilities. We have a renovation project for George Bailey, which is one of our facilities that probably needs the most work, although they're all aging and need work. We have a plan to spend about $40 million on those renovations in the next 2 years. We are already working to improve the wireless system in our facilities. That should be done. Facility by facility, we'll have that timeline on our website, but the final facility upgrade will be done early in 2023, although some of those will be sooner in the next coming months. And that wireless system will really help with what Mr. Tilden talked about with the connectivity between healthcare systems so that we understand what is going on in the community healthcare for the individual, and we can continue that care while they're in our custody and then offer them resources moving forward. We are starting the medically assisted treatment program that's already beginning with our pilot program, and that will help with the drug addiction and some of the overdoses that we're experiencing in our jail. We have a very robust system of identifying and interdicting drugs that come into our jail, but it's an addiction. It's an addiction problem, an addiction issue that we need to address, as well as all of the interdicting the narcotics that are coming into our system, which are causing all of these problems. The mental health assessments are key and crucial. Some of the other things that are helping with our, that we're working on, and I'm working with the Justice Partners on, as well as some of the implementation in the community, are the crisis stabilization units that you may have seen beginning to open around the county so that we can divert individuals from going into the jail for under the influence in some of those types of cases, some of the mental health issues, and they are treated in the community versus in the jail. Mobile crisis response teams will help divert folks from going to the jail. There are a lot of systems in place. I don't want to take up this commission's entire meeting this morning. However, we would be happy to come back and do some presentations with timelines, as well as I hope that you'll look at our website in coming weeks and look at the timelines, watch how transparent we are in accomplishing these goals. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I would love to suggest, Madam Chair, that indeed Ms. Martinez is invited back to give us an update in a few months. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And Madam Chair, we have Elena Perez and Aaron Glass Blake. And just to respect Mr. Tilden's time, I believe he needed to take off. So I'm not sure if you still are able to stick around until we finish these comments, Mr. Tilden, but let us know.
Yeah, I'm here. I can stay till the end of this particular agenda item. That's fine. I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tilden, for that presentation. This is Commissioner Perez. Disheartening, absolutely, but very thorough and much needed. Ms. Martinez, thank you for the support and that you appear to have in accepting of the audit results. We very much appreciate that. My comments were also very similar to Commissioner Desert's in that I'm assuming this audit is now public. And the other thing is my questions were also around follow-up. So who is held responsible then? So this audit comes out, and then who follows up? Does the auditor follow up with the sheriff's department? Who follows up on the recommendations, or do they have to respond to the audit? I mean, normally that's how it works, right? They're allowed an opportunity to respond, but I just want to make sure that there is follow-up. And I also think the idea of bringing Ms. Martinez back at some point in time when we've given her an opportunity to, initiate some of these next steps, just for us to hear that, okay, yeah, it's being taken care of, or issues are being addressed. So again, what are the next steps? Who responds to this, and what role does the auditor play in making sure that the issues that are brought up, the recommendations are followed up on?
Yeah, as I said, most of the recommendations, in fact, all the recommendations in our report that relate to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, they're all legislative recommendations. So they're all recommendations that the legislature make changes in law to require the sheriff to make some of those changes that I talked about. However, that said, the recommendations in our report has been alluded to. They're very detailed. So I think it does provide a roadmap for the San Diego County Sheriff's Department to move forward with starting to implement some of those recommendations. There's no need for the Sheriff's Department to wait for the legislature to enact changes in state law to require those changes. I think our recommendations, like I said, it's a pretty clear blueprint of changes that the San Diego Sheriff's Department can start implementing right now.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Farouk.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tilden, for the presentation. This was really helpful and informative. I have to affirm Commissioner Corey's comments earlier that I wish it didn't have to come to an audit for these issues to be taken seriously. I think it should have been happening way before, considering considering how critical this issue is. I do think it didn't have to come to this point for it to happen, but I'm glad we're at least here to talk about this really critical issue. I'm curious, Ms. Martinez, I know you talked about transparency a little bit. I'm curious to know who is overseeing this process outside of the sheriff's office?
Implementing the recommendations?
Yes.
We don't have anyone overseeing the process outside of the sheriff's department, but as Mr. Tilden said, there's a pretty clear roadmap, and if we're not following the recommendations, it's going to be very transparent and easy to see. It's really my goal and commitment to be accountable to all of San Diego County and to the people who are in our custody, as well as all of the other stakeholders that are involved. So we will be as transparent as we can be. We're happy to come back and visit this commission. I've just appointed a new assistant sheriff over our Detention Services Bureau. She and her team will be working very hard to accomplish all of these goals. And so I'll do everything I can to make sure you're kept informed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think having a follow-up presentation on the next steps and timeline would be really helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, Chair Nash, we have Ramit Glass Blake from the public, Dave Myers from the public, and then Commissioner Villaforte. And Elena Perez, I believe, I'm sorry, Commissioner Perez, I'm not sure if your hand is residual or if you'd like to speak again, let me know.
No, I'm sorry. That was for the item on Commissioner Hodges.
Gotcha. We get Ramit Glass Blake.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I also want to affirm many of the commissioner's statements in regards to knowing this was an issue and following up around the accountability and transparency measures. I have a few questions and I really don't know who can answer these questions, but and maybe Andrew, you can help out with this. Really, what is the relationship with the Citizens Review Board, the County Citizens Review Board, and the HRC Commission, and what accountability measures can be put in place to really take up the recommendations around what they need to follow through on around these in custody deaths and investigations and reviewing these reports. And then another thing is about 5 or 6 years ago, again, we didn't need this report to know this was a huge issue. 5 or 6 years ago, we were having these conversations. There was a advisory board created, and we went around with Deputy Assistant Sheriff Miller, who's now retired, and we reviewed every single jail that was overseen throughout the county. And we had severe issues, but we started to make progress around change. And once he left and things started to get political, a lot of the changes kind of went to the wayside. And so I want to ask the acting sheriff, what can be done to kind of create something like that? I think it's important that the community see what these jails actually look like and how they are ran, and give input on what needs to be done in a humane way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I would ask you what your suggested process would be for that.
I would love to further have this conversation. I have many suggestions.
Okay, yeah, I'm open to that.
And Mr. Tillion, I think I saw you come off mute about, were you going to speak to the relationship between CLRB and the Sheriff's Department and any oversight that could potentially happen in addition to what's already occurring?
I'm sorry, was that for me or for Mr. Tilden?
I saw Mr. Tilden come off mute. I was wondering if he was going to speak to that or not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
We do have some recommendations in our report related to CLRB. And one of the things is that they really need to conduct their investigations more independently of the sheriff's office. We understand there are some nuances there, and we understand there's some history between CLRB and the sheriff's department. And there have been some negotiations and agreements over the years in terms of CLRB's ability to actually interview sworn officers. So we understand that's, it's complicated. But basically, the essence of our recommendation is that CLRB needs to work with the sheriff's department to see if some kind of an agreement can be reached where CLRB has more access to sworn officers, to interview them and talk about the circumstances surrounding these deaths, really so that they're in a better position to identify any needed corrective actions. And so, again, recognizing that there's a union involved and there's longstanding agreements, what we're basically suggesting is that CLRB work with the sheriff's department to see if there can be some progress on that front to better enable CLRB to perform its external oversight. The other recommendation we have that was specific to CLRB is that I mentioned that there were a number of deaths that weren't investigated from 2006 to 2017. Well, 40 of those were natural deaths. And there was a time when CLRB didn't review natural deaths. And as I said, we've seen situations where just because a death was classified as a natural death doesn't mean there aren't some lessons that can be learned from that death around the area of, was the individual's mental health needs taken care of? Were their medical needs taken care of in a prompt manner? So for now, CLRB is investigating natural deaths, but we think they need to follow up on that and actually change their rules and regulations to continue that, because our concern is you could get new leadership at CLRB and then they might decide to stop investigating those natural deaths again. Those were the main recommendations. I suppose a more detailed recommendation that we had for CLRB is they need to develop a more robust training manual that really specifies what their investigations are going to entail and how they're going to follow up on any discrepancies that they see in various documents and notes that they get potentially from the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Mr. Tilden. And then just to answer your question about the relationship between HRC and CLRB, and if HRC could be an oversight body, HRC was not set up to be an oversight body or an investigatory body. That's not something that was in the bylaws or as a part of the mission that the board directed. If that was to change, that would need to be something that this commission will want to try to advocate for, and then maybe potentially put it in their bylaws. But that's something that has to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval and adoption. So that answers your question. And Commissioner Villaforte.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tilden, for the presentation. I guess my question is for the Acting Sheriff Martinez. So I'm struggling to understand why the Sheriff's Department has a permanent seat in the commission, especially after a report has shown what many of us in the community have already known. Can you explain to me your understanding of the Sheriff's role in this commission and how we as commissioners can help best help moving forward? And additionally, after Sheriff Gore's retirement, we've heard that some advisory groups have been disbanded, for example, the LGBTQ advisory group. So in your timeline, what's your plan in making sure that community voices are heard?
Well, I want to correct some misinformation. We didn't disband any advisory groups. I postponed the meeting from this week to a month from now on the LGBTQ plus advisory council. And the reason for that was it was really Sheriff Gore's committee, and I really would like to expand the outreach in that group. I think we need youth, transgender representation. We need more representation from the Sheriff's Department and also from the communities that the sheriff serves and people who have lived experience in the justice system and in the jail. So there's no disbanding. It's just a reconvening next month so that I have some time to sort of think about that process and how that will look. We plan to have an open house and invite the existing council as well as other members of the community, and we'll be advertising that. So just to put that aside, I'm not getting rid of or reducing any of our footprint or our outreach with the community. I'm expanding it. I think there's a lot of opportunity for groups that we haven't been meeting with and for people that we haven't been touching. So as far as the standing position on this board, this is the first meeting I've attended. I don't know much about it. As I said before, I'm new in this role 2 weeks, and the sheriff, a lot of the things that he was doing, I'm now stepping into. So I look to learn and grow in this position. So thank you so much for your question.
We have Dave Myers and then Commissioner Legaspi.
Okay, everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So this is kind of a two-part question for the auditor. If he could speak a little bit as to the department's response and his professional opinion on the tone of the department's response to the audit report and to the roadmap that the undersheriff discussed. So there were at least 3 previous reports, one by the grand jury, one by an outside consultant, that created a roadmap to change. And if she can address what she implemented as a senior manager in the sheriff's department who met regularly with the sheriff's leadership team to create a pathway to change in those previous reports. And then if she can also address the jail death that occurred last night and whether or not Paul Parker was able to respond to it and why the jail continues to intake individuals who are under the influence on misdemeanor charges and not referred to the community-based organizations for treatment. Thank you.
So I can address the first question there. So first, I have to acknowledge that the response that we received to our draft report, that came from the former Sheriff Gore. And speaking to that response, it was a 31-page response. It's actually attached to the back of our audit report if anybody wants to look at it. We were disappointed in the response because we thought the findings and the recommendations are really an opportunity to, to just, let's create an inventory of the issues that are occurring in San Diego. Let's try to get to why these deaths are occurring. Let's try to get to solutions to improve policies and procedures on a go-forward basis. And while ultimately the sheriff in the end of the response basically went through our recommendations and said that he agreed with all of them, 2/3 of the response was really honestly very defensive, and the sheriff was raising questions about whether we adhered to government auditing standards and things like that. So we were disappointed with that, although at the end, the sheriff did agree with our recommendations.
And to the second part of the question, I have been the undersheriff for almost a year. My influence over Detention Services Bureau or anything that was occurring there really was zero until I've been in this position. Since that time, I've implemented a number of changes. However, as Mr. Tilden said, I wasn't the sheriff. I didn't have the authority to enact some of the changes that you will be seeing moving forward and that I've already started to implement. As I said before, I signed the MOU with the clerk yesterday, and that was implemented immediately. So thank you.
Commissioner Legaspi.
Good morning. I currently serve on the Sheriff's Advisory Board, and I'm glad that there are procedures put in place to handle transgender arrest. I just want to make sure the safety and well-being while in custody. I don't know the numbers on the deaths, how many transgender deaths are included in those reports. But, as a representative of the transgender community, I just want to make sure that, yes, we have procedures in place for arrest, but we have the same procedure while in custody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so nice to see you today. We actually put out all of our training again. I believe it was Friday of last week. So, and I appreciate the council's participation and help with all of, advising on that training and what it should look like. It's absolutely crucial that we respect everyone who's arrested and treat them in the way that they should be treated. So thank you so much for your question.
Not seeing any additional hands up, Madam Chair.
Oh, great. I had some comments, and I'm coming from a place of, I take this very personal, up close and personal. I had an extended relative that passed away in your prison or in your jail. I do lift up and agree with Commissioner Corey and all of the comments that have been made, but put primarily Commissioner Corey around the fact that this has been going on for years. I've heard reports, I've heard audits, I've heard community members getting involved. And to the extent that we have, to me, what I call a big quiet secret of 185 people dying in jail cells is alarming and quite disturbing, quite emotional for me. Knowing that a safety check to check someone who's breathing was overlooked. That's appalling. That's inhumane. And it is embarrassing. It's disgusting. Turns my stomach. This is why the community has no trust in law enforcement, especially when it comes up close and personal with regard to an extended family member of mine who had mental health challenges all his life. That should have been known and should have been treated. Mr. Tilden, thank you for your time with us today. I'm very concerned. Yes, I want to see updates and reports going forward. But we got to move forward, but we have to, for me personally, I have to hold on to the hurt, the trauma, and the fact that a common sense safety check was overlooked to ensure someone is breathing. We got to do better. We have to do better. I'm concerned that, yes, this position is an elected position, and it appears to me to have shallow accountability. That structure has to change. I don't know how it can change, but that structure has to change. To give one leader that much power and authority that then does not delegate, I would assume, power and authority to his leadership to make changes is very, very concerning. Very, very concerning. So there has to be some accountability on the part of somebody, a body somewhere, some entity that keeps the deputy sheriff, the newly elected deputy sheriff, accountable to the community, to the voters. And so transparency is going to be something that we will be looking forward to in the future, but changes under you, Kelly Martinez, we expect changes to happen. Common sense changes, like checking on somebody and see if they're breathing. That's a no-brainer. So I would suggest we have a subcommittee, a public safety subcommittee that's very, very powerful. They're overloaded. and this will be another major issue that I'm going to ask the subcommittee to take on in terms of our public safety subcommittee. We need to address this. It's really sad that we're just volunteers. We're not paid to do this. But you keep bringing issues to us as if we feel like we should all be on a hired staff somewhere to make changes. We're expecting more. We're expecting immediate changes. In fact, Kelly, since you're the acting deputy sheriff, we invite you to attend these meetings on a regular basis. And we will agendize this item every meeting, starting from, again, are you going in and checking to make sure all these inmates are breathing, up to the other changes that you can make. So we do invite you. We're gonna request of you strongly to attend these meetings. We will agendize this item so that we have to get some results. We got to develop a trust in our law enforcement. And I'm concerned that our trust is very, very minimal at this point. It's disheartening, heartbreaking. So we have to make changes. Thank you for being here. Anyone else have anything to comment on in regards to this article, in regards to this issue?
Commissioner Evans, I am really shocked. I'm just sitting here floored. I cannot believe what I just heard, and I'm just amazed. I hope you can hear me because I'm in a work zone. But Ms. Martinez, we do want you to come. You not a representative, because apparently I get the feeling that the sheriff was basically placating us. And that's a horrible feeling to think that. I took him very sincerely on the things he was saying, but basically he was just placating us. And senior representative is not the same as you being at our meetings. So I would hope that you would have us in your agenda, in your schedule, and be here in person each and every time. Thank you.
We have Commissioner De Los Rios hand up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Auditor, for that report. I am also sitting here appalled and sick. I am the public safety chair for the Public Safety Committee. And, you know, I volunteered for this committee because I did see the urgency of the distress with community and law enforcement. And after this audit, it just confirms all of the questions and doubts. And I frankly don't know where to go from here, because we can learn and research and be placated by all of the law enforcement dynamics, but we as community need answers. We need change, because these are lives we are talking about, lives. And I'm going to stop right there because I am very, very infuriated. And as a Public Safety Committee, I will take this back to our committee and see what our next steps are. But I too agree that the Sheriff Department take a stronger role in this commission, because this is a serious, serious, serious audit. Thank you very much.
And looks like we have David Garcia's hand up again.
Yes, I'd just like to say, you know, I really hope that, because this has been going on for years, it's been brought up to the leadership for years, and nothing has been done. There needs to be accountability. I get there need to be we need to fix the system, but there needs to be accountability to those staff that failed us. And we have to see a change in the leadership of the sheriffs to ensure that there's accountability for what happened over the past years that has created this environment. And I know the frustration that I felt when, you know, the medical professionals that work in the sheriffs were not being heard. And then when the sheriff was going to outsource them with people that weren't even going to be, you know, doing the same quality level work, there's just been a very cavalier attitude on the part of the sheriff's leadership. I know, Kelly, I really hope that we do see a change in the leadership at the sheriffs that addresses these and makes the priority that there is better care in the facilities. There should be a doctor that is on call, someone that's not just a consultant either. They need to be public servants, that their job is to take care of, you know, the people that are in custody in the sheriffs. This has to be a major change in the sheriff's structure and how they care for the people that are in custody. And I really hope that this is going to happen on your watch, but it has to be done. And the accountability, people have to understand they cannot withhold care for these people in custody because they don't like their attitude, or they're giving too much of a attitude in the jail. Or these are people that need care, and it's your responsibility as the sheriff, as the acting sheriff, to make sure that happens. And I hope there's an accountability to you as well, that you're accountable to make sure that you report back to people that these are the changes, and when something happens, that there is a real investigation and not just a whitewashing of what happened, so that the sheriff doesn't have any liability. So
Commissioner Garcias, thank you for that comment. We are short on time, and we have an action item where we do need quorum. So I'm going to move on to that action item. Director Strong, if you could raise that action item that needs a vote quorum before our commissioners leave.
Thank you. And just say thank you to Mr. Tilden again for joining us, and the other lawyers and folks who are on that report. Thank you for the time. The next action item we need to get to make sure we don't, we have an option to whether we meet in person or not, is just this technical item, logistics to vote on this item for teleconferencing. And pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E3, a motion to find on behalf of itself and all committees. The commission has considered the circumstances of a state of emergency, and state and local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing, and authorize the chair to make the determination should the commission be unable to meet within the next 30 days. So we just need to take a vote to approve this motion.
You don't need a second?
We need a move and a second.
So moved.
Second,
Commissioner
third, fourth.
We'll call for the vote. Commissioner Anaya. Commissioner Arton. Commissioner Chasen.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark. Commissioner De Los Rios.
Aye.
Commissioner Desert.
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott Santos.
Aye.
Commissioner Evans.
Aye.
Commissioner Farouk.
Aye.
Commissioner Fowler. Commissioner Garcias.
Aye.
Commissioner Gillies.
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths Jones. Commissioner Hassan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges.
Aye.
Commissioner Ismail.
Aye.
Commissioner Corey.
Aye.
Commissioner Legaspi.
Aye.
Acting Sheriff Martinez.
Aye.
Chair Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Commissioner Herminia Ramirez. Commissioner Roberts. DA Summer Stephan.
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. That motion passes. So we can now move back to agenda item 7.
7.
If you want to continue that conversation, Madam Chair, from this-
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know Commissioner Desert has some comments. I would like you to go first because I know you have another appointment.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to thank our folks who participated in public comment, including Ms. Blake. Having a forum with faith community leaders to dialogue about the LGBTQ community is a really good thing. I want to start by saying that, but I want us as a commission to reflect on our commitment to civil rights for all. The existence of civil rights for our transgender community is not up for debate in this space. Transgender people are covered under California anti-discrimination laws and anti-hate laws and have long since been covered under the law. It's not up for debate. While Commissioner Hodges is free to preach against marriage equality and the existence of transgender people in his faith community, he is not empowered to do so as a member of this commission, spouting discrimination and hate in a commission meeting. His words are hate speech. In fact, if there was a hate crime, his comments at this commission meeting, we can ask DA Summer Stephens, who's present, would be evidence of an anti-transgender bias that would be evidence in support of the existence of a hate crime. This is a distinction that's really important here. One, there are two separate issues. Having the Human Relations Commission participate in dialogue with faith communities, there are 3 types of faith communities in our region. One, faith communities that are open and affirming to the LGBTQ community. 2, faith communities that haven't really taken a stance and taken middle ground, but aren't actively opposed to the LGBTQ community. And then there are faith communities that exist that are out of step with California anti-discrimination laws, with the progress we've made towards supporting the dignity of all people, including our transgender community, that are actively hostile to LGBTQ people. Those faith communities do not get to have a voice as a commissioner in a government body in the state of California. We are past that. And so while Commissioner Hodges has all the freedom of speech and freedom of religion to preach what he wants in his faith community, he is prohibited from doing that here as a commissioner. His comments are hate speech, and it makes him fundamentally unqualified to serve on this commission. So I think the distinction is really important, that we want to foster positive human relations for everyone, and foster community dialogue with all communities of faith, even the third category who have been historically hostile to the LGBTQ community. Having a forum is a great idea. Would love for the LGBT Center, who Ms. Blake was not reached out to, want to make that clear for dialogue, would be happy to participate in that forum. That's a good thing that can help move us forward. It's a space for dialogue, it's a space for healing, and all of that is right. And that community outreach and dialogue is distinct from the issue at hand, which is that we have a commissioner who feels empowered to use hate speech as an appointed official for the state of California, where he is not serving as a faith leader, he is serving as a commissioner in a government body. So really want to make those distinctions critical. We can move forward with both paths. Remove someone who has spouted hate against our transgender community and refuses to take that hate back, stands fervent in his opposition to the transgender and LGBTQ community, while we create and participate in community spaces and forums that are about dialogue and healing, and having really much needed conversations, in particular with a third group of faith communities here in San Diego who have been historically and fervently opposed to the LGBTQ community. So I welcome that dialogue, and it is distinct from what we're trying to do here, which is ensure that our duty as commissioners comes first, and that we are here to promote the positive human relations of everyone. And that includes the transgender community, who was specifically included in the recreation of this commission, is included in California anti-discrimination laws, and is included in the community for whom hate crimes exist under our state laws. Thank you so much.
We have Commissioner Perez and Commissioner Gillies, and we also have Aramik Glass Blake from the Member of the Public. Commissioner Perez.
Thank you. I'll be brief since Commissioner Desert put it so eloquently, because I fully support that as well. I did hear the comments, the public comments on nurturing and training and educating, and I fully support all of that as well. I think the two paths are important. However, I strongly feel that a commissioner sitting on this Human Relations Commission should not sit on this commission with those types of beliefs. You know, there's a lot of new rules, there's a lot of new legislation for this, and we as a commission, our mission is to be fair, to treat people with respect, to be accepting, to be inclusive, and all of that negates Commissioner Hodges' stance. And I also believe that, and I respect, you know, Commissioner Hodges for his role in this and his thoughts, but I don't believe that then that would be for somebody that would have a seat on this commission, because it completely contradicts with what we're preaching. So I strongly suggest that we still stay on the stance of, you know, removing Commissioner Hodges, but I do agree with educating, continue on that path as well, because I think, you know, I think people need that to be able to understand. So that's my position on it. Thank you.
Gillies.
Thank you. I've had a lot of time to reflect on some old ADL records this week, and I don't know if you can all see this, but this is an article from the Los Angeles Times that is titled "Fledgling Human Relations Commission Moves Forward at a Slow Pace." And this is about the San Diego Human Relations Commission and Leon Williams and his goals. And it's a really great article. I'll try to scan it in and send it to the commission. But Basically, what it is saying is that the Human Relations Commission, the brainchild of Supervisor Leon Williams, who said when proposing it in January that such a group was needed to reduce tensions resulting from prejudice, intolerance, and discrimination against individuals or groups. Williams' proposal quickly came under fire from leaders of the fundamentalist Christian community, who said they feared the commission would be a vehicle for, quote, legitimizing the gay lifestyle, because the elimination of discrimination based on sexual orientation was originally listed among the panel's goals. Supervisors wouldn't support Leon Williams' original proposal. It had to be modified and expanded so that it wouldn't specifically speak about the, quote, homosexual community. And according to the pastor that brought this up, he says, although he said he would not object to a discussion of the rights of homosexuals, the Reverend vowed to stop any effort to have the commission give gays an official stamp of approval. This is from 1985. I want to think that we are better than that today in 2022. I also fear that this issue is being framed as an intolerance of views, and it is not that. Words matter, and it's about how those views are expressed. And they were expressed in an extremely hurtful way. To say that someone's identity, their immutable characteristic, is an abomination or abhorrent, how would you feel? Take out the word the trans identity and put in any other identity, Jew, Black, Arab. How would you feel if it was said that you were an abomination? So it's not about the views, it's about how we expect each other to speak to each other in this commission and the values that this commission upholds. So I feel very strongly about this, and I thank you for letting me speak to it. We need to be better in 2022 than we were in 1985. Thank you.
Chair Nash, we have two members of the public. We have Arameek Glass Blake and Francine Maxwell.
Yes, thank you. I'm really hurt right now. And I'm saying this because I think we're missing a whole part of the conversation. And I really didn't want to get into the nuts and bolts of this because I've been talking to everyone from both sides of this issue. But I think we have to acknowledge the fact that Pastor Hodges abstained. I was on that call that day to speak on something completely different. He had abstained multiple times, and then the question was kept asked to him. So he was trying to keep his personal faith and belief out of the conversation. But once he was asked, he felt empowered to say what he had to say. In the Bible, whether people agree with the context or not, the word abomination is there. And he was using it in the context in which he believes. There's something that multiple of you commissioners said was, we do need to have education. Laws are currently changing. Things are currently changing. We're learning more. But in the same breath, you say he needs to be removed. So I'm hearing there is no room for education. There's no room for understanding. There's no room for saying, hey, in the Bible, it might say abomination, but in the context and when we hear it, that word has been used to kill and slaughter us, right? Those things need to be talked about, because when someone does not know and has no understanding and has not been taught, we're living in a completely different generation. He's from a completely different generation. And so there's been education that he's already done that has made the difference. And so that is why I'm asking to have those conversations, not to excuse anything, but to understand each other in the context in which we are seeing things and viewing things. And that is what diversity is about. He comes and represents a whole group of people throughout the county that believe and think the way he does. And you all have different groups that you come from. And until we come together and have those conversations and stop doing the cancel culture type of mindset, we're not going to get the changes that we truly want. And so if we're about the change, we need to see that, and we need the board, the commission to be leading on that. And that's all I'm asking. And for the center, I will be reaching out to you as well. Thank you.
Francine Maxwell.
Francine Maxwell, Chairwoman of Black Men and Women United, San Diego. We're very concerned of the offset of the conversation. The City of San Diego Human Relations asked this commission with the county to partner with them in a letter. And so upon doing that, there was a partnership, there was a conversation. So the intent was to have the letter signed by both to make coverage and this, that, and the other. Well, why was it that the Black man was singled out to ask of his abstention? Did you guys go through everybody else that abstained? Because he wasn't the only one. That is the fundamental and the foundational question. Did everybody else explain why they abstained? And so let's be clear that this is an attack of a Black man in region. And that's how most allies are seeing this. And so this should be dealt with now. It should be put away, and we should be able to move this train forward. When you want to talk about building trust, do you have trust in this region to get people to join the empty seats? So let's take accountability for why we have empty seats, because people in this region do not want to come and volunteer. So I ask you to throw this letter in the garbage, and let's move forward with healing with each other, and let's get the work of the county done. As I shared earlier, Black children by a white teacher being called the N-word. If something isn't outrageous enough to come to this commission that has no money, let's also get on the topic of why this commission doesn't have any money to host prevention, intervention activities. Okay? We got way bigger things to do in this county right now. Thank you for your time.
Chair Nash, we have Commissioner Desert's hand up again and Commissioner Elliott Santos.
I want to thank public comment from Ms. Blake talking about the process issue that happened. I think that's really fair to talk about. This is a new group run by volunteers. Chair Nash is a volunteer. Not really proper under Robert's rules to be asked to explain your abstention, and that happened, and it absolutely did. And so I think it's fair to talk about. There's a process issue that we as commissioners should be educated about in terms of what questions are and what questions aren't proper. I think that's really fair to bring up. I defer to the chair to talk about process in future commission meetings. Commissioner Hodges was asked to explain his abstention, and it is my understanding that's not exactly proper. I think that it's fair to bring up and it's fair to talk about how process can be used to single people out. So I appreciate both public comment bringing up that point. But I want to focus on what happened, regardless of the fact that Commissioner Hodges was asked to explain his abstention, he did. And though the word abomination is in the Bible, I've read mine as a person of faith, it's not proper to bring that language into this commission. It is defined as hate language. It is used as evidence of hate crimes under California law. And while it's true that he shouldn't have been pressed to explain his abstention, he did. Though he may have tried not to, he did. And that is crossing a line between the separation of church and state, which is fundamental to how our faith communities and how our government function independent of each other. And I think that's a really important point to bring up here. So I would welcome conversation about process to ensure that we as commissioners in this newly reformed commission understand how we should be following process and to talk more about that issue that occurred. But regardless, you can't unring that bell. Commissioner Hodges used hate language against the transgender community that is improper as a commissioner and disqualifies him for being able to serve in a role that is supposed to move all communities forward. I want to thank my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Perez and Commissioner Giles, for saying, had you substituted any other identity, any community of color, any faith community into what Commissioner Hodges said, it would be widely seen as absolutely improper, disqualifying, and a point calling for the resignation of this commissioner who cannot clearly separate his personal faith beliefs from his duty to represent all San Diegans on this commission.
Commissioner Elliott Santos.
I'll just make my comment short because Commissioner Desert said exactly what I wanted to say. And I think I was one of the commissioners that said that we needed some training. I do believe that all the commissioners that abstained were asked the same question, not just Commissioner Hodges. And that day I expressed as a Native American what my people have gone through when religious views actually ended up in our lives being taken. And so words definitely mean a lot. This is a commission about human relations. And I just, you know, it has been brought up already that if a child gets called the N-word, or how about if a Native American gets called savage, what he said and called people an abomination is the same. And so, yes, we are trying to take care of all of those issues, but we have to start with this commission and the people and their beliefs that are on this commission. They can't have those beliefs and sit here too. It's really tearing at my heart that we're having all this discussion when this commission should be out there trying to make a difference in the community instead of having this argument with each other. And no matter how it came about, his belief about a certain group of people is not acceptable here. And I do even want to say this. I believe the way he phrased it was that transgender people were an abomination. And I think if you go back and look at the Bible, it says the act of them, you know, is the abomination, because I don't believe, as a person of faith also, even though I'm Native American and maybe I call the creator my Ha, even in the Bible, it talks about loving all the people, not to call a person an abomination. So if you didn't believe in the acts that they were doing or the whatever that was going on, you could have said it in a different way, but you said it about a human. And then there was no apology. There was just the continuation of your idea, even in the letter that you sent. So I feel like we really do need to fix this and end this and have our commission move on with what we're charged to do, which is to make a difference and try to end hate and to educate people about these issues. So I'm sorry, and this is really a difficult discussion. I do believe we need training, and I do believe there should be a special meeting or this forum where we can all talk about it, because religion or saying that we're only focusing on a Black man, that is not true. It wouldn't have mattered who on this commission would have said those words, because those words have taken a big toll on it. And it's not about the color, it's about what was said, and that absolutely was hate speech. Thank you.
Commissioner Hodges.
Good morning. First and foremost, as I put forth in the letter, how long I've been ministering the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's been a lot of years. As the young lady read the letter that was written in 1985, the word of God does not change, and the Lord himself does not change. Times may change, but the word of God does not change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Now, I started out telling you, everybody, that I love you. I love you. I love you with the love of Jesus Christ. I love you. But as I teach wherever I go, it's just not this board, it's whatever meeting I'm in, I end the conversation with the love of Christ. And I didn't say that transgenders were an abomination. I said what you're doing is an abomination, as well as an adulterer or fornicator, or sin is sin in the eyes of God. However, certain sins are more serious when it comes to him. We're created in his image. Now, if we're created in his image and we don't accept him, we're just an image. And it's my job to make it hard for a soul to go to hell. I believe when I introduced myself, when we first started this commission, I said that it's my job to make it hard for a soul to go to hell. And those who continue practicing sin, that's where they're going. Not just and sin is laid out in the Bible, so I don't even have to go there, but sin is laid out. Now, I study the Bible, I meditate on the Bible, and I do my best to live it. However, I'm not perfect by no means. I'm an imperfect person aiming toward perfection. And with the love of Christ, I'm going to share the love of Christ with everybody. That's my job, that's my duty. So, and again, whatever you think of me, I still love you.
Madam Chair, not seeing any other hands requesting to speak.
This has been a, I'm getting text messages from even the public. This has been a very hurtful, stomach-wrenching conversation. As you all know, I am a person of faith, born and raised in the Church of God in Christ Holiness. This commission was created on the basis of love, on the basis of promoting positive human relations. That's where I stand. That's where I will always stand. We have people on this call commissioners on this call that are hurt, that are traumatized. Some of them have been in the hospital because of this. We have to create a pathway forward. As hurtful as this seems, I embrace the idea, the recommendation of a conversation, a courageous conversation. However, at this point, we need to create a pathway forward. And I've reached out to the Board of Supervisors. All the letters have been sent to the Board of Supervisors. Some have responded, some have not. So we need to create a pathway forward. I'm going to ask Director Strong and Attorney Rachel Witt, based on the current structure process, to share with the board, to this commission, what our pathway forward is.
And Rachel, if you're still on, feel free to jump in if I miss anything. But the pathway forward has already been taken, Madam Chair, as far as sending a letter to the Board of Supervisors, requesting whatever actions that you would like to have in regards to Pastor Hodges. Also, if there's any other activities that this commission will want to do. I know in Commissioner Desert's letter, there was some talk about a media campaign or something of that nature. That's all up to the commission to do, potentially through this communication subcommittee. But as far as the next step, what I'm hearing and what I would recommend, as far as working together to try to heal, to try to rebuild, to try to move forward, putting together some type of forum, some type of maybe multiple community meetings to really have these tough conversations. Our Office of Equiracial Justice is more than willing to partner with Aramik and others in the community to host a meeting, to convene, to provide speakers, to outline whatever we want to do to make sure we have opportunity to move forward. So that in my mind would be the next step for us as a commission, and how we can support from the Office of Equity and Racial Justice.
Attorney Witt.
Thank you, Chair Nash. I don't have anything to add other than what Andrew has already provided.
So let me ask this question again. Does this commission have the authority to remove a commissioner? Yes or no?
No, it does not, Madam Chair. The commission does not have the authority to remove commissioner. It's not in their bylaws. And as you know, the bylaws are currently being revised right now to add additional language. Currently, the update is that they're not considering removal. You're considering potential censure of an individual if they don't meet certain criteria, and that criteria is still to be fleshed out and developed. But the next step with that would be to be taken to the Board of Supervisors, well, actually to this commission to vote to move it to the Board of Supervisors for approval of new bylaws. But right now, you're not, the subcommittee is not discussing removal of members. It's discussing a potential censorship. And that is really heavily influenced by the thought that if a Board of Supervisors member appoints someone to this commission, the subcommittee felt strongly that it should be up to that board member, the Board of Supervisors, to make the decision to remove. So that's the update coming from the bylaws subcommittee. But it is not within the authority of this HRC to remove a member at this time.
Thank you.
Madam
Is
Chair,
there-
may I comment?
You sure can. Yes.
Agreed that it is not currently in our bylaws to remove a commissioner. That's true, and we're working on the bylaw committee to look into how we can adjust that. But currently, the Board of Supervisors has the power to remove commissioners. The quote is removal at the pleasure of the appointing or nominating authority. And here, the appointing authority is the supervisor who appoints individual commissioners to serve. That would be Supervisor Anderson. I'm sorry, Super Anderson is the nominating authority, but the appointing authority is the entire Board of Supervisors who votes to confirm these appointments. And so the Board of Supervisors is absolutely legally under the bylaws empowered to remove a member of this commission. And so I invite all of you to call the Board of Supervisors and to express your thoughts as commissioners about what has happened here and encourage them to exercise the power they have under the bylaws of this commission. Thank you.
Director Strong, Attorney Witt is what Commissioner Desert is talking about. Desert is talking about. Is that correct? Yes or no?
It is correct. The Board of Supervisors have the power. They are the appointing authority. The nominating authority will be the District 2 Supervisor, Joel Anderson, but the board votes just like all commissions. Once you apply, it goes to a board letter that gets voted on by the entire Board of Supervisors. So they have the authority to absolutely remove somebody from the commission, as at least their appointed members. And Rachel, if there's anything, did I miss anything on that one?
No, that's correct.
We have a couple of hands up. We have Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Corey, and District Attorney Summer Steph.
My question was, does it, for this proposed removal, does that need a vote of the commission to send to the supervisor or to the Board of Supervisors to request that removal?
We've already done that. Commissioner Garcia, we've already done that.
Yeah, we already voted on that.
And sent a letter.
It really has not been a response, though.
Chair Nash, I just want to highlight this. It is 11:55, and we do have Commissioner Corey and DA Summer Stephen hands. All right.
My question basically is, has the Board of Supervisors responded to our vote for the removal of the commissioner? And if not, can we send them an official letter referring them to what was just said as to their responsibility, and that we as a board, at least the majority of whoever voted, of course, can sign that same letter along with the Chair Nash, asking them to go ahead and act on it?
We've done that.
I mean, we sent them just the letter from you. And we informed, I don't know if they knew that we voted basically as a commission to take action. Now, do we need to go back again to them and have them, let's force the issue and have them vote on it themselves. I would like to know what Fletcher and the others will be voting. It's not enough for it to get diluted at their level and to be forgotten about it.
District Attorney Somerset.
Question, please. There is a section F that says of the bylaws that doesn't allow individual, I read it as to not allow individual commissioners to communicate on behalf of the commission or in the name of the commission unless specifically authorized by the commission. So if individual commissioners like myself wanted to write or have my own perspective as an expert in certain areas and hate crimes and other areas, I'm a little concerned about section F because I certainly want to be acting within the rules and the bylaws. If the chair and council believe that in the spirit of the commission's action by writing a global letter on behalf of the commission, that then authorizes individual commissioners to take their own action in whatever way they think is correct. I'm a little worried about section F, but maybe the attorney, Ms. Witt, can let us know, or maybe.
Yes,
yeah.
I'd be happy to respond to that. Yes, section F was written to ensure that the spokesperson for the commission was either the chair or as designated by the commission. And so in this case, you wouldn't be reaching out to a member of the Board of Supervisors as a commissioner speaking on behalf of the commission. But of course, you as an individual can reach out to express your views as appropriate. And so that would not be a violation. You just can't represent that I'm coming to you on behalf of the commission and the commission says X, Y, and Z. And so, as long as you ensure that what you're saying is based on your individual capacity, that won't be a problem at all.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
We have Commissioner Desert, his hand is up again. Or did you lower it down? Okay.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are empowered to talk to the Board of Supervisors as commissioners if we're talking about the letter that Chair Nash sent that required a vote of the majority of the commissioners. We're empowered to talk about that because it was a vote of the commission and a letter by our main spokesperson, our lead spokesperson, Chair Nash. If you were to deviate from that letter and add additional thoughts, you need to express those as an individual. But we are free to reach out as commissioners to talk about the letter that required a vote of our majority and that was signed by Chair Nash that did specifically call for the removal of Commissioner Hodges. Am I right there?
I do recall that some actions were taken a few meetings ago, which I believe the HRC took action and it passed to authorize members to reach out to the Board of Supervisors, and to the extent the whatever the person is representing is consistent with that direction. I'm sorry, I don't have it exactly in front of me, but that would be acceptable. And if Andrew wanted to forward what that motion was so that all the commissioners had the scope of that direction, then that was the commission authorizing members to reach out within that particular scope.
Thank you so much. And then when I shared talking points with commissioners, those were based on Chair Nash's letter.
At this point, as the chair, we have operated within the authority of the language that has been shared with us by bylaws section F and the bylaws that Attorney Witt just shared with us as well. The Board of Supervisors, they know what their authority is. They don't need to be reminded. I've reached out on several occasions. They know what their authority is and they don't need to be reminded. I'll say that again. So at this point, my stance is it's a Board of Supervisors call. I have personally talked with Board of Supervisors myself as well on behalf of this commission. It's up to the Board of Supervisors to use that authority that I understand they have from that language and take the action. That's where we are. That's where we are.
This is Commissioner Evans. I'm looking at a larger issue. If they're not responding to this issue, then how seriously will they take us in other issues? You know, they can respond positive, they can respond negative, but to totally ignore or present the image of ignoring us, I'm really wondering, do they really take us seriously? And if not, then perhaps we should look at them in terms of, you know, we're all voters, you know, we're all involved some kind of way in our community, you know, taking the message back in terms of their response to what the commission is saying or recommending or whatever. You know, the greatest insult is to ignore someone.
Madam Chair, we still have Commissioner Garcia's hand up. I don't know if that's residual from earlier. And we also have Francine Maxwell, member of the public, and we are at 12:04 as well.
Okay. A few more minutes and we're going to have to adjourn because I know everyone has other issues going on.
This Commissioner Garcia's, I mean, I just, this is taking a lot of our time and we do have a lot of issues going on. I mean, we should, or my recommendation is we should censure the commissioner and then move on to all the business of the commission. I get that this is something that we would like to have done, but if we can't, we need to move on because there are a lot of priorities that this commission can be working on. If we were to censure Commissioner Hodges, it would have an effect, and we would then be able to move on to the real business of the commission. This seems a little, I mean, we don't want to give the appearance that we have infighting as well. So this is all appearance based. Thank you.
Any other comments?
We had Francine Maxwell's hand up if she's still on.
Francine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Francine Maxwell. I wanted to make sure that the commissioners don't feel that they were ignored. I invite you all to pull up the archive of GOD Radio 1, Dr. Warren's show from the desk of the editor. County Board of Supervisor Chairman Nathan Fletcher was there, and he expressed his thoughts and his feelings and his concern. So please know that volunteers are the backbone of this region. You are appreciated the time that you donate to this commission, and we celebrate you for joining and volunteering. But please don't ever feel that you're being ignored, because the chairman, he had a conversation last Wednesday, and you can pull it up on godradio1.com from the desk of the editor, Dr. Warren.
And I believe
Thank you.
Commissioner Desert.
Commissioner Garcia's, I just have to say how heartbreaking it was to hear your comments that we should just move on to the real work of this commission. Standing up with our transgender community, standing with our LGBTQ community, which includes members in our Black community, our Latino community, our AAPI community, all our faith communities include LGBTQ and transgender people, just feels the wrong way to approach this. This is the work of this commission. Yes, this issue has exposed that there is at least one commissioner who does not support our transgender community, but that's not about appearances, that's true. And it means we have more work to do in educating our broader community. But it also means that we as commissioners need to be able to show up here and do our work. And there is someone whose hate language has prevented us from doing that. And so saying that we should just move on from this issue is ignoring the fundamental humanity and the real attack that happened on our watch as commissioners here in this meeting. And so I just had to say that comment.
At this point, it is 12:08, and we could of course continue this conversation. I do support the convening that was offered to us by community members as a priority for this commission in terms of healing and education. Believe me, I have learned a whole lot through these conversations with an S, and then conversations outside of this group regarding these particular issues. I'm in a learning mode. I don't think I know everything. In fact, I don't know everything. I know now that I don't know more than I thought I knew after becoming chair of this commission. I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to stand on, but principles. But my main principle, and I think the reason why we are this commission, I keep going back to it, is that to promote positive human relations. That's why I volunteered. That's why I stepped up to chair this. This takes a lot of our time. All of you are on subcommittees, Zoom calls. I'm glad we're Zooming and not telecommuting, because our gas prices are ridiculous right now. So I'm very selfish about that. But we have a lot to learn, even from our meeting protocols. We need to go back and revisit some of that particular training. So I'm going to ask Director Strong and Attorney Witt to put the training protocol, meeting protocols on the agenda, particularly, and let's take this up. This is very important, because it is about love. It is about that 4-letter word. And that's who I am. This is about love. And we need to check ourselves on where we are with regard to reflecting on love, because love, from the Bible standpoint, since we go in there, it's not hateful. It doesn't result in trauma. It doesn't result in hurting people. And I look forward to that convening, because I have a whole lot to say, a whole lot of stories to share about growing up in the church and all the hurt and trauma and pain that I personally had to go through around this issue. So I look forward to those conversations. They're going to be hurtful. There's going to be a lot of tears shed, but it needs to happen. It needs to happen. And I want to say thank you all for staying with me for an extra 10 minutes, for extra 10 minutes. And this is Black History Month, and all of those elders that have gone on before us, it was all about love. We made lots of sacrifices because of love. And one more, I just want to ask Tammy, she wanted us to stop for a moment. If you could just stay for 1 minute, Tammy, if you could remind us of the precious elder that left us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, although I think that Julia had her hand up and I don't want to step on over anyone. I'm not sure if, Julia, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, Julia.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody in the commission. This issue, I was the most affected. It happened in November, and it's like all healed wounds are opened. Words matter. Words can make people hate. Words can cause division. So I just want to let the commission know, thank you. This is a transgender face that you're looking at. This is a best example of what transgender people has to go through on a day-to-day basis. I reflect on my 40 years of activism in support of this community. The word abomination pulled me down, gravely affected me emotionally, my health, because I don't know, well, since that day, that all I wanted is for the commission to be in support of the Transgender Day of Empowerment. It's not a special attention or a special request that we're making. We just want your support because it sends out a strong voice to this community that transgender people matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. It's very hard to follow that. Your words are really so meaningful. And thank you, Chairwoman Nash, for allowing me just to end on a note that I think is really relevant in light of the conversation that we're having. And I just want to take a moment to remember and honor my predecessor, Morris Casuto. He was the founding regional director of the ADL, and he served ADL for 37 years. I hope you saw his obituary on the front page of Sunday's Union Tribune. He was a warrior for civil rights in our community, including the importance of the Establishment Clause, which speaks to the separation of church and state. He was a leader in the founding of the initial Hate Crimes Commission. He created the San Diego Hate Crimes Registry. He was a founder of the San Diego Hate Crimes Coalition, and he really fought for those who didn't have a voice, and he stood up for every single San Diego resident who was a target or a potential target of hate crimes. He really made a difference in this community, and he's going to be very missed. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I would like to just remind you of the opening of the song, and this, what our purpose is, to lift every voice. Lift every voice. Meeting adjourned. Take care and God bless.
Thank you, Chair Nash.
Here.